Here we have some square roots that we need simplified, and we want to put them in terms of I. We can see that they're going to be put in terms of I, or an imaginary number, because they're all the square root of a negative. And anytime that you have a negative under a square root, you're going to be dealing with I, since it's imaginary. Let's take a look at the square root of negative 100. We know that 100 is actually a perfect square, so ones like this are pretty simple. Really, what we're doing is we're breaking this up into the square root of 100, since that's the biggest perfect square factor, and the square root of negative 1. Once you get better at these, you're not going to have to write all of this out, but I'm just showing you what it means. The square root of 100 is, of course, 10, and the square root of negative 1, by definition, is I. And so that one is not too bad. If we look at the green one over here, the square root of negative 63, unlike 163 is not a perfect square, but it does have 9 as a factor, and 9 is a perfect square. I picked 9 because it is the biggest factor of 63 that is a perfect square. So I'm going to break this apart into the square root of 9 and the square root of 7, and that's because 9 times 7 actually give us 63. Now, in the first problem, I broke apart this negative by just putting negative 1 in there, since 100 times negative 1 was negative 100. That just became I. So from here on out, I'm just going to be writing out I. So I'm just going to write out an I over there to take care of that negative. Okay, the square root of 9 is plain old 3, and the square root of 7 cannot be broken down any further, and this I, I'm actually going to put it out in front here so it doesn't look like it's under the square root. And that one's broken apart. Our very last one, the square root of negative 23. Well, 23 is not a perfect square, and it actually cannot be broken down like we did 63, and that's because 23 has no perfect square factors. It actually is prime, so it doesn't even have any other factors besides itself and 1. So I'm just going to pull out that negative as the I, oops, and keep the square root of 23 under the square root. Perfect.